You know, I don't know about you guys, but I thought this was one of the weakest indie Nintendo Directs in quite some time. With that being said, I am interested in Soundfall because I love my music games, Gumbrella, and Cult of the Lamb, which looks really fun. Even Another Crab's Treasure, which looks kinda cool. But if I'm being honest, the games I really wanted to see were Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge with a release date, and a release date for Cult of the Lamb. Yeah, that indie Nintendo Direct was pretty weak. Hey guys, it's Rob here, and welcome back to the Robo Show, where we take the gaming news format that channels like Spawnwood or ALOT do, add a dash of animation and some cool editing on top to bring you your gaming news, leaks, and rumors in a fresh new way. If you're new here and want to be kept up on everything gaming, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you enjoy the video and dislike if not. In this video, we are going to talk about some surprising words by a Nintendo insider about a new Fire Emblem game, Nintendo's response when asked about the next Nintendo console, and the indie Nintendo Direct. The Nintendo insider also talks about the Zelda remasters, and also Metroid Prime and Donkey Kong, which we haven't seen for quite some time. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like or dislike if not, and if you want to follow me on Twitter and help me reach my goal of 900 followers, you can follow me at RoboRob93. Without further delay, let's talk about some Nintendo stuff. So the June Nintendo Direct is coming fairly soon. We are already halfway through May, or almost halfway I should say, and before you know it, we're going to be getting some huge news on The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, maybe some Bayonetta 3 goodness with hopefully a release date, and heck, maybe even some Metroid Prime 4 gameplay snip. Overall, the bigger games will get news, and of course new surprises, but one series that's been getting bigger and bigger and bigger over the course of the years is Fire Emblem, a series that used to be niche, seems to have grown and grown quite a lot. And now fast forward to just yesterday, we have more Nintendo insiders saying that there's gonna be 2 Fire Emblem games that are coming, and this time it's by Nintendo leaker Zippo, and this is what Zippo says. There's 2 mainline Fire Emblem games in development. There's a possibility that one might hit this year. This is another one that's hard to pin down. Where do you put it exactly, and how far after 3 Hopes is enough breathing room? This one is hard to say honestly. But that's not where he stops. He actually talks about more Nintendo Switch games. These Nintendo Switch games include The Legend of Zelda, Donkey Kong, and the Metroid Prime remake. First up, let's start with what he said about Donkey Kong. So Donkey Kong is a series that hasn't seen much love since Tropical Freeze was brought to the Nintendo Switch, which is unfortunate because Donkey Kong is such a good series and I think it deserves a new game in the series, especially since we haven't seen one since Tropical Freeze on the Nintendo Switch. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a port from the Wii U too, so it's been a while. Personally, I'd like to see a sequel to Donkey Kong 64. That game was fantastic and I'd love to see what they could do with the Switch hardware with a new Donkey Kong game. Now we have talked about Donkey Kong a while back with rumors of the Mario Odyssey team working on a 2D or 3D Donkey Kong game, and Zippo mentions this in his blog. This is what Zippo said. The long rumored Donkey Kong game. I have a very good feeling that we're finally going to see this thing in action soon. That said, this is another one that's hard to place. November wouldn't make much sense because you already have Pokemon, but anything else is possible. December is also something that I could see happening. That would actually be a pretty smart move in my mind. There's also the possibility of early next year. Hopefully, we should know soon. Regardless of the speculation, Nintendo is pretty stacked in the second half of the year ahead of them. There's undoubtedly a new Nintendo Direct coming our way before too long, and I'm honestly unsure of what to expect from this one, in terms of unannounced games, which is very exciting for me because now I'm fully capable of being surprised. Moving on to the Zelda games we have covered recently on the show, Zippo has some info on those games, which he also includes the Metroid Prime remasters as well, and this is what he said. This is another rumor that's basically confirmed, just like the Prime remaster. Okay, so it's a remake, not a remaster. I apologize for that confusion. This is another thing I know in fact exists. Both parts are done and ready to go. What's kind of difficult is figuring out where exactly to put them. They could literally go anywhere in this schedule, and that's why it's so tricky. If I had to make a guess, I'm gonna say from August to October could be the best spot for this dual pack. If there is a dual pack released in August, which one are you gonna play first? Are you gonna play Twilight Princess first or Wind Waker? For me personally, I'm gonna play Wind Waker first. Now speaking a bit more on the Metroid Prime remasters, he says this in a short quote. "This has been heavily rumored at this point. This is basically confirmed. An announcement soon is very likely. I'm gonna go ahead and slide this into the October slot. That makes the most sense to me." So assuming that his speculation on the dates are right and that these do actually exist, which he's talking about that as a fact, I'm assuming that this is gonna be revealed at the June Nintendo Direct, which if it is, that alone would be good enough. And then you add the Breath of the Wild 2, hopefully a Bayonetta release date, hopefully some indie games as well, like that new Jet Set Radio-like game, that would be cool to see there too, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, hopefully we get a release date for that, which I'm surprised they didn't show that at the indie Nintendo Direct, but hopefully we'll get that too. And of course other surprises that we just don't know about, like maybe that Donkey Kong game. Now as always guys, keep in mind that this isn't from Nintendo, so they could very well be fake and be wrong. Always remember that. Now if you're not interested in anything about the Nintendo Switch 2, I have a video that talks about more Donkey Kong, Zelda, and other games. The video is past 300,000 views, so you know there is something a little special to it. It's a decent video. Just click the top right corner of the video and be brought to that. And if not, let's talk about Nintendo's words when asked about the next Nintendo console, as well as some insane records for the Nintendo Switch. And not just the Switch, but also Metroid Prime 2, which is an insane record in and of itself. So the next Nintendo console is something that I think is very huge for Nintendo, not just because it's a new console and the next generation for Nintendo, but because last time they did that and they were on a huge streak with the Wii U happened. So I'm sure in their mind they're thinking, we have to nail this, we cannot have another Wii U. I mean, do you guys remember the Wii U drought when there were barely any games for that console, the sales slumps, and just how bad it was to be a Nintendo fan at the time? That is, unless you had a 3DS, because the 3DS was doing pretty good then. Not so much in the beginning though, if I remember correctly. So when talking about the next Nintendo console, it's not just about what Nintendo will do, it's how they will do it. Another thing you have to look at is how Nintendo is selling the Nintendo Switch and the software that it's putting out and how well that software is doing, because that affects the next Nintendo console when you talk about backwards compatibility. It has over 100 million players, so leaving that much behind when the Switch is still selling well would be a huge mistake in my opinion. And I think Nintendo knows this because Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa was asked about a lot of these things in the Japanese Q&A investor meeting. And this is what he said. "We have already announced a portion of our software roadmap releasing up to next spring. Unlike the past, we continue to have a large variety of games scheduled to be released, even beyond 5 years of a release. This is because Nintendo Switch has such a smooth launch, allowing us to focus all our development resources on a single platform." However, the question whether or not we will be able to just smoothly transition from the Nintendo Switch to the next generation of hardware is a major concern for us. Based on our experiences with the Wii, Nintendo DS, and other hardware, it is very clear that one of the major obstacles is how easily the transition from one hardware to the next is. To help alleviate the risk, we're focusing on building a long-term relationship with our customers and will continue to launch new software on the Nintendo Switch. We will provide services and also use Nintendo accounts and other IPs outside of gaming, which we intend this to help build a lasting impact with our customers. So I think this is kind of them hinting that backwards compatibility is going to be a very important discussion when talking about the next Nintendo console, something that I believe is extremely important to the next Nintendo Switch or whatever console they have. Now, I personally do believe they are talking about backwards compatibility with the next Nintendo console and the Nintendo Switch, and here's why. I really don't see Nintendo supporting the Nintendo Switch for a very long time and just a new console with new games that don't play on the Nintendo Switch. This would go directly against what they're saying in this quote. He says they were able to focus on one platform, meaning making one game for one system. So if you have backwards compatibility, you don't have to worry about a new console. You can still make it for the past console and the current console, just like the DS. Specifically the new 3DS and just the regular 3DS. With those two consoles, they didn't have to worry about, oh, is this gonna work on the past 3DS or not? They can just focus on the console and on the software. I mean, it would be insane to throw away all of this momentum. Keep in mind, guys, that Nintendo has been making a lot of huge headlines recently with some records. These include things like outselling the PS4 lifetime sales, which is pretty insane, Metroid Dread becoming the most sold Metroid game in existence out of any game, and more other records breaking for other franchises like Animal Crossing. And what's even more crazy is Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, the rumored games like the Donkey Kong game are still yet to be released. All of these huge Nintendo Switch games that are gonna pull sales for the Switch consoles are still yet to be released, adding more to that momentum. So it's clear that Nintendo wouldn't want to leave all of this behind just for a new console. For what reason exactly? I think the best course of action is bringing the Switch 2 or Switch Pro and having a more powerful Nintendo Switch that maybe has some exclusives that are exclusive to that console, but still plays the regular Nintendo Switch games as well. Now, if you're not interested in the Indie Nintendo Direct and my general thoughts on that, you can click the top right corner of this video for more Game Boy Advance goodness and that coming to the Nintendo Switch online service. And if not, let's talk about the Indie Nintendo Direct. So the Indie Nintendo Direct has come and passed. If you guys don't know, it was rumored a couple days back, but you can pretty much look at what Nintendo does in the past and kind of guess what they do in the future. It's pretty easy. No Nintendo leaker involved or anything, you really don't need them. With that being said, there were some interesting games shown, but I do think overall it was weakest out of pretty much any Indie Nintendo Direct that was shown, which is kind of disappointing. I was kind of hoping that a lot of things like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, or at least a release date for Cult of the Lamb or something interesting. It just didn't have that oomph, those big releases of indie games that I was expecting. I'd even go so far to say that it didn't really have that much interesting games that were like, oh my god, I have to play this. It was more of, yeah, those are kinda cool. I don't know, I just thought it was boring overall, but still some interesting games, but not as interesting or exciting as I thought it was gonna be. And now that the video is about to end, why don't you click the top right corner of this video to get videos just like this. And if not, overall guys, it's just interesting. All the stuff that we talked about was pretty fun. We talked about some rumors, some Nintendo leaks, we talked about some Nintendo news, and overall had a good time. But now that I've given you my thoughts, make sure you tell me yours. What do you think about Zippo's words? What do you think about the Switch 2 conversations going on? And what did you think about the Indie Nintendo Direct? Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. And if not, on your way out, make sure you subscribe for more videos and also have that notification bell on. And if you want to support the channel in any other way, there is my Patreon and Twitter account in the pinned comment if you're interested in those. Oh, and also have this donut if you're still sticking around for me rambling. Thanks for watching guys, and remember, stay safe, stay charged, and have a good one.